And on the seventh day, he said, "Let there be light!" And it was good. Hey guys, Nathan Lyle here with another top 5 list. And this is my top 5 all-time favorite video games. And first, let me preface this by saying I am not a gamer. In my entire lifetime, I've only owned 2 gaming systems, Sega and PlayStation. I owned a Sega Genesis, then the PlayStation 2, and now I have a PlayStation 3, and I'm gonna have that PlayStation 3 until the PlayStation 5 comes out, at which time I will buy a PlayStation 4, because money is a thing that I can't afford to waste right now. So this is a list of just my own 5 favorite games, and if you're like an avid gamer, then it's probably best that you just like click off this video right now and go do something else. I'll give you a minute. Okay, not a minute, maybe like 5 seconds, whatever that was. Anyways, like, I've never played any of the Uncharted games. I've never played any of the, what was those other ones, Assassin's Creed games. I've never played any of the BioShock games. I don't do any PC gaming at all. It's just not my thing. Tried it before, not a huge fan. I've never even seen a Wii. Like, I've never been in the same room as a Wii. I don't know anyone who owns one. I'm damn sure not spending my money on it. I haven't actually played a Mario game other than the classic 90s Game Boy ones. Was it Game Boy or was it Nintendo? Whatever, but those are that's the only style of Mario I've ever played. That Mario, Donkey Kong, stuff like that. I can't stress enough that this video is not like the top 5 best games of all time. This is just my opinion as a less than casual gamer who just, this is what I enjoy playing the few times that I actually do decide I want to game. I would also like you to take notice of the fact that that in my top 5, every game that you're going to see is a series, which has multiple games. And that's just because I like when you can have different iterations of a game, and especially like if you can build on what you did before and make it better so that it's still an enjoyable experience, but also more interesting and challenging without taking away from the original story or whatever. You get what I'm saying, right? There are a lot of honorable mentions, like Final Fantasy. I'm not a huge fan of it as far as actually playing it, but I do love the series. The only ones I've actually played are 7, 10, and 10-2. 10 was the first one I played. I loved it so much that I played 10-2, and then my friends couldn't stop raving about 7, so of course I had to check that out. But they were a fun little story, but I don't really enjoy those type of games in general, which is why they're not on the list. I've never been a huge fan of Resident Evil. And here's my history with Resident Evil. When the very first game ever came out, the original Resident Evil game, I got to the dog and I died. That's the highest I ever got. The very first time a zombie came at me, I just started firing, and I missed every single time apparently, and the zombie ate me, and then eventually it got good enough that I could kill 2 or 3 zombies, and then I would walk into a room that had a dog, and I died. And then it got to a point that I was like, fuck this, I'm never going to beat this game, and I just have not touched a single Resident Evil game ever since. Also, I'll say right off the bat, Street Fighter, it's an amazing game. I love just about everything Street Fighter. I love Street Fighter games, Street Fighter action figures, Street Fighter movies, both anime and live action. Even though just about every live action Street Fighter movie I've ever seen sucks. I love Street Fighter. The only reason that this is just purely about games, and the reason that the games are not on the list is that as I've gotten older, I've gotten less and less interested in Street Fighter. It's just gotten too complicated for me. It used to be a really fun game where it's like you just press random buttons and you had 2 buttons. When I first heard of Street Fighter, it was just, I went to the arcade and it was just this console there. You had 2 buttons and a joystick that you move around, but now it's just, I could go on there with Blanca and I would just electrocute you till you died. It wasn't that hard to get. I don't know if it's just, but I don't know if it's because I've gotten lazier in my old age, or if the game has gotten more complicated, or maybe just a mix of both. But now it seems like I can just never win a fight in any of the new versions of Street Fighter especially. And it's just like, it's just not worth it anymore. I mean, I used to love, obviously, Ryu because I could do all of his special moves. I used to be able to love going within there with Vega and literally bouncing off the walls. But like I said, you had two buttons, but like I said, back then you had two buttons. Now suddenly there are like 20 different ones, and you got to do all these weird combinations to get their move. And it's just like, I was like, fuck it. I haven't played a Street Fighter game in like 5 years, so. Anyways, we're taking too much time. Moving up the list. I'm going to start at number 5 with two fighting games that are tied for 5th place, Soul Calibur and Virtua Fighter. Now, I'm huge fans of the entire series, but they both have one thing in common. I started on number 4. The very first Virtua Fighter I ever played was Virtua Fighter number 4. The very first Soul Calibur I ever played was Soul Calibur number 4. Those came a lot of years apart between those two releases. So Virtua Fighter has a head start because I played it much longer. You know, it's a very realistic fighting strategy game where, you know, you're moving around, interacting with the environment, and there's just a lot of movement you have to control. It's like, because when I was younger, I liked being able to you press the punch button and your character punches the other character. You don't even have to be facing the character. You're turning the other way, you press punch, and your character just turns around and punches them by themselves. Now, I like playing them because I like the fighting style and because, you know, they've got great characters with great abilities. At the same time, though, it's not too complicated. I'm not calling myself a master by any means, but just playing arcade mode by myself against a computer on whatever. I don't really look at the levels. I just play at whatever the factory preset is. Those are two games that I don't own any of them right now. But if I did, those are games that are very fun, that I can just pick up any time and just start jamming out, and just next thing I know, time is just flying by. Number 4 on the list is another fighting game, and it's actually the last fighting game, and that is Tekken. And now we're going to take a little tangent. To talk about why Mortal Kombat is not on the list. Because Mortal Kombat's an amazing game. I think the first one I played was either 2 or 3 back in the 90s. And once again, it was one of those games that I discovered in an arcade, and I started playing it when they came on the consoles and stuff. And I played everything from, like I said, it was either 2 or 3. I don't remember that far back. I was pretty young and I didn't pay attention. And then the very last one I played was Deadly Alliance. And they were all great games and I enjoyed them. It's just that, like, I don't know. I don't want to say I outgrew it because it's definitely not really a kid's game per se. But somewhere down the line I just kind of lost my lust for it. I don't even know what happened. Part of it might be the Street Fighter effect too, that it seemed to get more complicated as I got older, and I just decided it wasn't worth it. I don't know. It is an amazing game. It's number 6 on the list. It just barely missed out. I thought about making number 5 a 3-way tie just so I have an excuse to talk about this, but I'm like, you know, it's just 2 of them tied is enough. If I made this top 5 list 10 years ago, then yes, this would have easily been in there. It's just times change. So my history with Tekken, I never played the original arcade games, Tekken's 1 and 2. I started with Tekken Tag, and then I played Tekken 4, and then I went back and played Tekken 3, and then 5 and 6 came out, and I loved those, and 6 was actually the last one I played. Things I loved, especially about 5 and 6, I mean, with Tekken Tag, I loved that you had all of these characters, such a wide range of them with all their own unique and interesting abilities. It was an easy enough game to master some of their special moves and techniques, but the fighting itself was still very difficult. And a lot of people say Tekken is a button masher, requires no strategy, but at the higher levels of difficulty, it's still much easier to win if you can strategize. I mean, with Tekken, as with most games, at the basic levels, then sure, you can just press a lot of buttons and you can win. But that's one of the things I discovered playing like 5 and 6 when they start doing the online stuff and you start being able to play against guys all over the world. and you can raise your level as well as the levels of your characters and shit. Can be a strategy game if you allow it to be. And Tekken is a game for me that I've always loved because you punch and throw people. I mean, the entire game is just beating the shit out of people, and it's just fun. And story mode has changed so drastically, and I don't necessarily enjoy that as much. But I do enjoy it. It's just not my favorite part. I've always just loved the basic Tekken arcade, where you just go through a tournament, just battle after battle until you beat the boss Saichi, and then his grandfather Jinpachi, and now you got Azazel. These guys just keep getting stronger. What the fuck? I haven't played it in a while. I haven't played it in like 2 years, and that's just because I like some of the older versions more than the newer ones. I like that they're more customizable now, and at the same time, the rewards are because of the additional difficulty. And so I haven't played that in a while, but it's only been like a year and a half since I played that compared to these other games that I haven't played in 5 years. Like I said, I'm a less than casual gamer, whatever that level may be. It's still easily one of my favorites all time. It's a game that even though I haven't played it in a while, I do at least own it. I've got Tekken 6 over here. I just haven't been in the mood to play it because it just started pissing me off, and I'm kind of scared to pick it up again. It was the story mode that was pissing me off the most. Eventually it got to a point, it actually got to Azazel, that's exactly where it got, and I just couldn't beat him, and so I was like, fuck this bullshit, I'm just gonna find it online and watch the playthrough. And I was pissed off that they cut the arcade mode down to just like 3 fights and then Azazel. That's just kind of bullshit too. I love the fighting style, I love the characters, I love the online mode and the customization. I mean, especially the online. Tekken is one of the few games that I'm actually willing to play online. I played Madden Online once, never again. Fuck that. Speaking of Madden, we have now reached number 3 on our list, which, if you haven't guessed it already, Madden. And I'm just saying Madden in general because I don't have one favorite Madden. They're all favorites for different reasons. Like, one of my favorite Maddens was 08 Madden, like 07 and 08. Some of my favorites are like 07 and 08 because they started introducing the franchise, the Superstar mode, and I really enjoyed those. I don't know, they just keep changing Superstar mode, and I don't like it in the later versions. Like 07, when they first introduced it, sure, there were plenty of bugs, but it was an enjoyable experience. The only thing I really hated about it was the randomness of the characters. It's like, yeah, you pick a name and a position, and you do a few walkouts, it generates some stats, but you never knew, because on the one hand, I once went as a halfback, and I ended up with like a 72 overall. But on and I deleted that one like almost instantly. But then on the other hand, there was a time I went as a cornerback. I ended up being drafted by the Ravens, who at the time, they still had Samari Rolle and Chris McAllister, and I ended up being the 2nd overall cornerback on the depth chart because my overall was like 94 as a rookie. And so I definitely loved that. I mean, 08 overall is my favorite Madden just because because Superstar was the most customizable, and I was able to make a lot of really great superstars that had really great careers, but I could also go in as some of the already made superstars like Patrick Willis and Adrian Peterson, which honestly those are 2 of the main reasons I like the 08 Madden. That was a great draft class to be a superstar for. And I haven't played it in a while, but do you know, what was that other one? There was that other little mini game where you create a character, where you create a team by like building characters. Like you can get the Ravens linebacking core, but then like the Cowboys defensive line, and then you'd have like the Colts offensive line, and then Aaron Rodgers as your QB. What was that called? I can't remember. I'll look that up sometime, and I'll leave it in the comments or something. In all honesty, the thing I like the most about Madden is the story. That might sound weird to you, but here's the thing, like Kingdom Hearts, it didn't make this list, but it's one of the best stories I've ever seen in video games, for me personally at least. I played the first one, I loved it. I played the second one. I loved it. I tried to play Coded, but I hit not Coded, Chain of Memories. But this battle system confused me and stuff. But then all these other ones started coming out, and so I just started watching the walkthroughs online. And Kingdom Hearts is one of the only ones that I actually look forward to going online and seeing other people play it. Because it's just like watching one of my favorite movies or TV shows. It's just a really great story that I enjoy, but I don't actually play it. It is a really amazing story though, and so I've seen, and I can't wait for Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, I've seen all the walkthroughs online for 1, Chain of Memories, 2, Coded, Birth by Sleep, 3582 Days, and Dream Drop Distance. But I just don't actually enjoy playing it as much as I do just watching this story unfold. That's why it's not on the list. Madden, though, the thing I love the most about it is that you can just keep going as long as you want. When I played Superstar Mode with the '08 Madden, I retired 3 different characters. 2 of them played for 9 seasons, and then I retired with them just because they started getting slower, and I wasn't as effective. But they had Super Bowl rings, they had decent stats and stuff, decent enough to get in the Hall of Fame at least. With Adrian Peterson, I played for 9 seasons, and I got myself traded to the Broncos and then to the Texans. So my first 3 years were each with a different team. It's not my fault. Javaris Jackson sucked in that game, and then the Broncos, they just had too many screens and shit. Their offense confused me. I just couldn't stand it. And I went to the Texans, and working with Schaub and Johnson, that was just a great fit for me, at least my style as a runner. And they had a great defense as well. And in my last 5 seasons, we ended up winning 4 Super Bowls. We won 2 in a row, then we lost to the Jets in the conference finals, then we won 2 more in a row, and then my speed kept dropping. And then my speed just kept dropping until it got to like 86, and I'm like, I just can't be effective anymore. But I had 2 games where I got over 300 yards, both of them against the Jaguars. And the first time that I did that, they still had Stroud and Henderson. I don't know how the fuck it happened. Anyways, I mean, that's the reason I love Madden, because I can just talk about it for a while, just because it's such a great story. At the end of every season, do you know what they do? Old players retire, new players get drafted, and you get to start the season all over again. There's no actual end. And that's what I love most about it. You can just keep going as long as you want. I mean, games like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, and all this stuff, you play it once, and then that's it. The story's over. Madden, it's on the list because, I mean, you keep going and going and going, and just until you feel like stopping. The story doesn't decide that it's done. You decide when you're done with this story. That's what I love most about it. That's why they left up so high, because it's really not that great a game in my own personal opinion. I just love that I get to control so much of this story, and that it's a story that keeps going. And I mean, so many great stories can unfold. I mean, Michael Buckley and Blaine Miller. I mean, they're a receiving core that I had. Blaine was a 2nd round draft pick, the second pick in the 2nd round. He was supposed to be a 1st round pick. I mean, it said he was going to be a top 10 pick. I don't know how the hell he slipped down. I don't know what's wrong with Madden. But I saw he was available in the 2nd round, so I traded away my 2nd and 3rd round pick so I could get that 2nd pick and grab his ass. And he started every single game. But my leading receiver actually ended up being a guy who was completely undrafted, Michael Buckley. And I just had, like, everyone kept getting injured. And the next thing you know, the Thanksgiving Day game, he only catches 4 passes. But he got 4 touchdowns. There were 2 of them where he just caught it in the end zone, a 3-yarder and a 4-yarder. But then the other 2 were a 78 and an 82-yard reception that he caught it and then took to the house. 4 grabs, 4 touchdowns in his first ever game as a pro. It's an amazing story, and he ends up being my #1 receiver that year, and he's a starter for the next 2 seasons. And then the next game system came, and then the next version of Madden came out, and I started playing that. I mean, that's what I love about Madden. That's what I love most. It's a great story, and a great story just really triumphs all. So for me personally, you can have the best game in the world, but if the story is shitty and makes no sense, I just can't enjoy it. Or you can have a really shitty game with a really great story that'll just make me want to play. And I like this because it's like a choose-your-own-adventure book almost, except better. The story keeps going, and you just keep getting new players. Like Michael Buckley and Blaine Miller only ever existed in that one universe. Deshaun Ward right now, a corner that I got on one of my franchises, he's only ever going to exist in that one universe. It's just new and interesting stories every single time I play it. And that's just the best part for me. And number 2 is another football game, Blitz the League. And I know there are a lot of people who are going to hate this game and love it for the same reason. And in reality, you hope nobody gets hurt when they're playing football because it's a game we love. You hate to see someone get injured and even potentially die. But this is exactly what I love about the game. They're both great. I loved one. The only reason I liked number 1 better is just because you could brawl. I don't see why they took that out of number 2. In number 1, you could start brawls on the field. It wasn't really like a great feature. It wasn't really like a great brawl to begin with. You press hard hit and you hope that you landed a tackle on somebody. But it needed some tweaking, but it was still something I enjoyed. And then Blitz the League 2, and they improved the hitting system so you can target specific areas of the body, and you keep mashing that X button to increase the damage you do. One time, I love the animated cutscenes of them actually getting injured. I know, it's very gruesome. It's not for everybody. It just has to be your kind of mentality. I just enjoy that game, and the reason it's number 2 on the list and it's because it's one of those games that, like Madden, I can only play every now and then when I've got a lot of time free. You know, all these other games, it's something that I enjoy if I'm in the mood. This is a game that no matter what, I can play it and it makes me feel great. And I'm happy when I'm finished. I mean, if you accidentally bump into a character, if you accidentally bump into an opposing character, it's a pass interference penalty. But in this one, you can actually tackle the guy, and that's just good defense. Plus, when you press the shoulder button and you get your screen blue, oh my God, oh my God. The thing I remember most about it is that one time I moved the button I landed a hard hit on the guy, I moved the button to his ribs, and I maxed out the X, and it went to a cutscene, the rib broke off, and then it went and sliced open his lung. Out for the season. It's a brutal game, and it's just something you have to have the taste for. I have the taste for it, and I enjoy it greatly. Actually, now that I think about it, that's not an actual series. There's only 2 games, and I don't even like number 1 now that number 2's out. So just Blitz the League 2 is number 2. Oh, I also should mention the soundtrack. I just think they got an amazing soundtrack. Ever since I heard, Falling Through the Sky by Reliance, that song just always gets me hyped up, no matter what I'm doing. That song just gets me excited in ways I don't understand. I don't even like rock. I like that one, though. So moving on to number 1, my all-time favorite video game is the SSX series. Now, I've played all of these games. I started with the original release SSX back when there were only like 8 characters and 4 courses. And I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it enough that when SSX Tricky came out, and they made all these renovations, I saw the hype and I was excited for it and I loved it. I played Tricky and 3 and On Tour and Blur and the new SSX reboot that they have. I've played all of them. My favorites are Tricky and 3. And Tricky is my favorite mostly just because I like number 1, but there are no Uber moves, so that's out of the way. I like the new SSX, but it's too damn challenging, and it's hard to get past some of these levels, and it's so difficult and frustrating, and it just takes a lot of the joy out of it. And I liked On Tour only because you can create your own character from scratch, and it was very customizable. That was the only thing I liked about it. And Blur, honestly, it's barely worth mentioning, honestly. Tricky is my favorite one to play just because, like, the venues are so amazing. Pipe Dream is just a great place to practice all your moves, to walk on getting, like, when to jump so you can get peak air time and knowing how many moves you can land before you hit the ground. It's a great place to practice and walk on your tricks and your forms and your technique. And oh my God, fucking all of the tracks, Mesa Blanca, Aloha Ice Jam, they're all so amazing. My all-time favorite track ever in any SSX game, though, is definitely Tokyo Megaplex. It's a fucking pinball machine. That's all it is. It's a giant pinball machine that you go around three laps on it. And that I just love that track so much. It's a trickster's paradise. I've always been more of a show-off guy. I mean, I can still win a race, no problem. And especially in Tokyo Megaplex. I can go in Tokyo Megaplex with Luther and get super uber on the first lap and just boost my way to the finish and beat everyone by like an entire minute. And Tricky, the only reason that Tricky and 3 are tied is because 3, it's a lot like, the venues aren't quite as extravagant as in Tricky, but there's a lot more customization with the characters. You know, I got boxing gloves for Vigo. Max, his head is a balloon now. And you got the skeleton head thing. And also, you know, with Tricky, you go up a level and your characters, their stats improve however it's supposed to because of a program that they put in. But with Tricky, you know, you can go in there and you can do whatever you want. You can max out edging and not add a single drop to speed. You can have 10 everything and only 3 agility. You can only have like 3 on your tricks because you're a racer. You don't care about doing tricks. Or you can do like me and just keep it dead even the whole way. I don't know why, it's just a thing that I do. I hate having one stat sticking out more than the other. But the reason that this game is number 1 is because, I mean, the tracks, you know, whether they're doing race or show off, it's like a 3 to 5 minute thing, so it's a good quick play game, and it's very fun and relaxing, and I can never really get frustrated at the game itself. It's usually, you know, when I'm not doing well, it's because I'm messing up, usually because I'm either not concentrating enough or because I started showboating and tried to do like more than the character was capable of handling because I'm just like, oh, I'm so badass I can't mess up. I mean, overall, those 2 games specifically, I love the entire series. It's a great franchise, but Tricky and 3 are my favorites. And those 2 are 2 games that I can just pick up at any time of the day and just jam out and just in general just enjoy myself completely.